Hi, ladies. Thanks for joining today. We have come back together because Sharron, Nestta, and I have just had this insane response to our last um, video that we did together, and it was really unexpected. And it just made us realize that there's a lot to talk about in New Zealand that people are wanting, needing to hear that, or that, it helps them validate what has been going on with them, what they've been experiencing. Comments have been insane and incredible. And so we just decided to kind of continue the chat. So here we are again. I've got Nestta, who I'm going to call Nestta Jones is like our practical put everything into place person. So everything that Sharron and I are doing, talking about channeling, Nestta is actually actively out there around the world at these ceremonies, meeting these shamans, meeting these people in all different countries, out working with the whales. And so she's kind of tying it all together in this really practical way, and then bringing back lots of information from these trips. And Sharon Martin it has been channeling Gaia for 10 years. She's going to be traveling around the country, meeting people, talking to people, and I'm sure that this would be an amazing opportunity for some people to connect with her. All of our information is going to be underneath if you want to connect with any of us in person. And we also want to encourage any comments, any further topics that you're interested in hearing about. And I am Melly Rose, and I am a facilitator, healer, and spiritual counselor, and I work with people in all capacities in the spiritual realms. So uh, all of us do our own form of channeling and get information in our own way, and we're just here to kind of put some of that together with all our different words and see what comes up of it. So thanks, ladies, for joining again, and I'm really looking forward to this chat. I've been looking forward to it for the last week, and I'm glad we're back together. So I was thinking that a lot of topics came up in our last video, and we sort of went all over the place. And what we thought we might touch on today is some of the challenges that New Zealand is facing, some of the things that are going on, what's behind some of those things from both a practical and esoteric point of view, and how we as individuals can bring something to the table. Each and every one of us has the ability to bring something to the table. And I think that, when we know that actually there's a lot of people out there in New Zealand all wanting the same outcome, because we have this tendency towards negativity, right? We have this tendency towards, oh, it's all over, what's the point, kind of thing. And it is easy to go down that road when you look with your eyes at some of the things that are happening, some of the laws that are changing, some of the freedoms that look like they're being taken away. But um, there is still an incredible amount of light, and there's a huge amount of people in New Zealand that are really, really ready for something to change, that really are desperately wanting to connect with other people that feel the same, and they are wanting to know that this there is this huge group of people to connect with and that feel the same as them, and there is hope, in New Zealand. There is hope in the world for real change to happen. So I'm really interested in what you've both got to say on that.
I'll just jump in a minute. So I was really amazed during in Auckland, we had letters given to us back in November about this, that the council was going to be building 2 million more houses in Auckland. And we all got a letter saying, have a look at where your house sits on the map. And a lot of us were told we had risk of landslide or risk of flooding. And so there's been this big idea here of what they're calling managed retreat. It's pulling people off the coastlines, and it's happened to people down in the west coast, down towards Wellington as well. and several other places. And I think that what I was really amazed with is the amount of community, people getting together, sharing information, talking to the council, who were saying, actually, this is coming up from the government, where actually we don't think it's a good plan. There's no infrastructure changes happening to accommodate this massive new buildings. And I just was so, what I really noticed from a lot of people that I know is that it was quite terrifying for them. But once they
Mm,
had a group to join together, and it gave them some hope, and it actually brings people some power to know that they can, come together and do something about it. And quite
mm,
grateful that the government has actually backed down a little for now, election year, of course. And if that comes up again, then we just have to stick together again and come together. So that was a good example of, I actually felt quite frightened myself, and I ended up giving information to about 80 different people in the end, and holding a Zoom about it to give people the information on how they could object to it, what they could do, where was their house sitting in that plan. And I really feel that really helped me to actually take some action,
mm,
take some meaningful action, work with other people. And that's actually how I met Sharron. So I'll pass over to Sharron.
mm,
Yeah, so I'm always shown how whatever is happening, it has a range of perspectives. And so I always see that those things that create some pushback are a catalyst for change. And so we can view something and have an internal response, which is, well, I don't like that and I don't want that to happen. And then we can go to, so what action can I take about it? So I think that if we always view those sort of perspectives as an enabler for garnering energy for change, that's a useful approach. And personally, I see that this is part of the land grab, and that this is part of a, an increasing pressure that we will resist, I believe, as a group of people, not just here, but around the world, from ostensibly the New World Order, who are a totally unelected body. They're a self-selected group of beings, and they are wanting to own the best spots and move the people off so that they can have access to those. So I see it as more of that. And to me, as I say to mum, the governments just change the colour of their t-shirts. Um, there's not a lot of change that comes with a change of government. They tend to be issuing the same policies because in my view, they are bought and paid for by a group of beings who are beyond here. But it's also my intel from Gaia that they are being evicted from the planet, if not having already gone. And so there's some sort of replacement placeholders for a lot of those people,
mm,
beings, creatures.
mm. What do you mean by replacement placeholders?
So clones,
Mm,
so beings who have been biologically replicated, who look like them, or actors that are wearing a mask, or
mm,
some kind of merged AI
mm, mm,
thing, or it could even be like imagery that is just projected, a projection. We
mm,
don't actually see them in person, so it could be like a hologram, or there's a number of ways
mm,
um,
mm.
that, that can be seen. But
Yeah.
the biggest thing that's happening on our planet at the moment is that we've had 3 activations of what Gaia calls enlivenment. So we've returned now to our original divine plan blueprint. The planet is now breathing and pulsating as an entity. And
Mm.
we're just the micro of that.
I
So,
love that. I love that. And for me, I've always been very connected to the stone. And, you think of like Barry Brailsford and the Song of the Stone and the Greenstone Trails and things. And I mean, these books, when I read them, was just like, it was like inhaling truth.
Yes.
and Songs of the Waitaha, and all of these books. It was just incredible how coded they are, in terms of waking up aspects of your soul, which really just blew my mind. And I didn't know we had people like that in New Zealand producing work like that. And so,
Mm.
when I came across all these books like a number of years back, it was just incredible to me, because I'm really not, I'm not a heights person, but I go under the ground. So caving and, abseiling deep down, and getting into caves, underground caves and things. And I've done that around the world quite a bit, and diving. So when I'm near the rock, just something starts to happen to me. I get really, really activated. And I've just been in Cairns actually, and it's the oldest rainforest in the world. It's 80 million years older than the Amazon. I had no idea. So
Wow.
it's incredibly activating up there. It's absolutely crazy. And we were at these Cascade waterfalls, crystal cascades, and the stone there just felt like hundreds of thousands of years old. And everywhere we were walking, I just wanted to run up and hug this wet, dripping stone,
Yes.
It was just so incredible. And I just feel like that activation that you're talking about, Sharon, like the communication channels, it feels like, one of those last battles in Lord of the Rings where the trees finally stand up and the oceans, roar, and the earth sort of rumbles and everything just starts communicating together.
Yes.
And so as that happens, yes, we're going to have a lot more earthly movement, and we're going to have a lot more going on. And yes, maybe not all of it is natural, but actually some of it is,
Yeah.
this vomiting of everything that it has been holding for us, that she has been holding for us, for all this time. It is finally starting to be heard and be spoken, and to heal. And even if it's a long, slow process, it has begun for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
When you zoom out of the time that we're in and look at it from a cycles of time thing, everyone knows, or a lot of people know, that we've come to the end of a massive 25,590-year precession of the equinoxes cycle, and it's the fifth one. And this age that we're moving into is termed as the golden age, or the Aquarian age, moving out, back from Pisces. And so that gives me a lot of hope. And I also think that that is why the purification is happening, that all of the dirt, all of the stickiness, all of the evil, all of the things are starting to come to light, because it has to be seen for us
Yes.
to tear it down, for us to say, no, we don't want to live like this. And I often think of the animals, and I think, well, they just survive on the land, it provides everything for them, clean water. It's just the humans that tend to fuck it up.
Yeah.
They just get it wrong. But we can move back to that kind of lifestyle. It's the corporations and the way things are happening around corporations and governments, and these elite people who are very rich and unelected, like the WEF, like the WHO,
Yes.
etc., etc. And I think people need to see it, and it almost needs to be, it has to be so in your face that you're like the PC 120 plan that I mentioned. You have to feel like you're about to lose everything to actually realize, oh, I've actually got to stand up and fight for what I believe is right, not only for myself, but our children, for the animals, for the land, for the planet. It's quite a big thing that's going on, and I think that gives me a lot of hope, because I realize that one of the reasons the elites are doing so much to try and take control is because they're losing control.
Hmm.
So they're really fighting hard to hold on to that. And they know about the times we're in right now. They know
Mm.
what's going on.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. They show
Beautiful.
up to me as the beings holding on to the edge of the cliffs with their fingernails. And there's no way out for them. So I was shown that there was some kind of moratorium that was placed at some point where they were like given an opportunity to exit by a particular date, which I don't remember, but sometime last year. And if they didn't, they would have to wear the consequences of being here and of whatever humanity decides to bring, I guess. But how we how we are right now is in an unsettled way because we're in that traversing from the old to the new. So we haven't quite left the old and we haven't quite got to the new, but these codes that are coming from the universe, from the solar, from the lunar, and from the galactic, that is exactly what they're designed to do, what you were talking about. So this this showing up what still needs to be healed, this and bringing light to a situation that needs to be attended to. And so that is happening for us and in our communities and on the planet as more and more of what has been hidden will be shown, including the underwater cities and the underground cities and this whole thing that Guy's spoken about we're turning inside out and upside down, and it's happening in kind of a tangible way also. So the pyramids, for example, that are in our world that are underground, under the ocean, internal of the earth, external of the earth, and they are here energetically as well as physically, and some of them are crystalline, and some of them are upside down and inverted, and all of those are being sort of rewrited and they've been connected up and reactivated, and they've created an internal sacred geometry that's holding the designed to hold the planet energetically as we go through this expansion.
Absolutely. Even when I was in Cairns, it just felt like there was pyramids everywhere. And I think that, I've had experiences where I've seen, I actually was with these two women, and one of them was just in full channel, writing all over the windows in light language. And the other one was saying, "What are you seeing?" And I was just walking around like, and just like so much stuff was coming through, but I was seeing pyramids buried under jungle, um, and in Asian countries, and I was seeing portals to and stargates to other planets, and there was just like with everything that she drew, there was just like all this huge amount of stuff coming through. And what was really interesting about that was she didn't know what she was drawing. She couldn't understand what all the language was that she was putting onto the windows. She was just in her trance doing that. I was I couldn't read what she was, putting up there. It was, light language, but I was having very visceral, massive, purging light language responses with visions. And shortly after that, I suddenly found myself in this room with about four or five other I'm going to say galactic, it was like a small galactic representation of some kind of larger federation. And it was at like a meeting room, and they were all from different places, and everything that they were saying, because we were asking about, these women were saying, we, can we have more information? Can we get some of these codes? And they were saying, you cannot yet be trusted. So they were saying to me that no one person can be trusted. It's like, the ring of power, right? And they were saying, the only way that your planet has a chance is if we encode everyone with a piece of the puzzle. And you have to learn how to come together. You have to learn how to stop fighting. You have to learn how to stop being at war. You have to learn how to share. You have to learn how to step aside from your ego, and because you cannot be trusted with too much power. No one individual can hold this level of power without succumbing to it and becoming inverted, like, the forces that currently rule the planet. And so in order to try and counteract that, we've all just got, a piece inside of us, and we are starting to have more powerful magnetics where we're being drawn to the people that have the pieces nearest to us, so that we can start putting together little sections of the puzzle and start coming up with more and more information. And then now these sections are starting to meet up with other people who have a section, and we're starting to put more and more pieces together to link us, so that more and more information is starting to unfold and make more sense, and we're starting to get that bigger, clearer picture, which I just thought was so fascinating. And it does seem to be sort of, how it's happening, and we are finding more and more of each other through the magnetics of each time, a segment's being put together. It has a higher magnetic, pull, and it's drawing more of those people who are working on other segments towards us, which is how we end up all around the world with all these different groups in really random places that we have no idea how we got there, but suddenly we discover all this stuff. So
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah, I think we are coming out of an inversion, a very inverted time. And I think that as we move, on a planetary level, one person I really enjoy listening to on YouTube is Pam Gregory, because she talks about cycles of time and astrology on a hundreds of years kind of level. And she talks about time repeating itself. And this is a time of revolution. And that I find fascinating. That so I kind of see time as we go through these spirals, and as we touch
Yeah.
on a point from before,
Everything
it
actually happens energetically in spirals.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Tell us more, Sharron.
Yeah, so it's not just time, although time is a very elusive, well, time is a very 3D construct, really. So when we move to a higher dimension, time becomes present moment. And so that's the transition that we're in, and it can be very expanded. But yeah, all of the evolution, so that's what I would call it, that we're in an evolution, happens in spirals. So our lifetimes happen in spirals, our recognition of truth is happening in spirals. Our connection to others is happening in spirals. And there's also something about the connection of 12. So it's as though a simple mathematical way of doing it is that when groups come together in cycles or groups or clusters of 12, and that 12 creates the 13th energy. And so that's another way of looking at the way that we work energetically. And we've been in huge electrical downloads, which is the masculine, which is why the masculine in our world at the moment is really affected. And we're learning to come into this new way of operating, which is to come into congruence, to come into alignment, and to come into truth. And so one of the beautiful adages that the guy said a long time ago was that we will get to the point where the molecular structure of a lie won't hold itself together. We're in that time now, and that the planet will return to its rightful place in the galaxy. And that galaxy, or that position, is as the crown jewel of the galaxy, the intergalactic destination point, and the living library of the universe. And so that's where we're in movement to now.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I also get shown that everything moves in spirals or waves. And yeah, and also, that spiraling inward for when we need to become more introverted and go within and to restore balance, restore and replenish our energy, and then spiral back outward to take it back out to, people and our communities and our environment. And we must really learn how to understand which spiral we're in, because if we're in the inward spiral for too long, we're going to become depressed, lethargic, lose our energy. But if we're in the outward spiral too long, we're going to collect too much of our environmental energy, and that's also going to affect us. So, from an emotional capacity point of view, Yes, empaths are, being massively affected at the moment. We've got frequency attack, we've got chemtrails, we've got angry, crazy people everywhere. I mean, every time I leave the house, I'm like driving somewhere and I'm like, oh my God, just take me back to the house, and it's so I think there's probably a lot of people becoming quite insular like me at the moment because the energy is just so overwhelming in a lot of places and people are not coping. People are and we're in a pressure cooker, right? So in that transitional period, there's the squeeze, and we've got to pop out of the top somehow, but that squeeze creates enormous pressure, and so there's a lot of people getting sick. There's a lot of people who feel like everything's sort of collapsing around them. There's a lot of people that are not coping with the information that's coming out at the moment, around what's really been going on in the world, and so there needs to be maybe a little bit of support somehow for some of these people, and helping them sort of transition through that cognitive dissonance into just awareness, learning how to hold awareness without it overtaking you and consuming you.
Yeah,
I
so
think
really good
having
practice. Go, Nessie. You need to go.
sorry, I was just going to say that having a belief in the fact that I think it's a fact that we are everlasting beings. We're here on the planet for a fairly short time, but there's also information coming out that we are able, if we didn't have all the toxins in our food, in the air, in the water, in the vaccines, in the this and that and the other, that we would be able to be living much longer lives. And there's stories in the Bible even, and many, many books of humans living for hundreds of years.
Mm.
There's stories of there's stories about us being enclosed. I think we talked about that in the first video. So we cannot leave the planet, so we keep getting recycled back onto Earth, which a lot of people I hear will say, oh my God, this is the last time I want to be here. I want to get out. I want to go back to my home planet or whatever else. And I'm interested to hear what you guys think about the prevalence of ETs. And I think that is something that's been really covered up for humanity for some time. So yeah. What's your thoughts about ETs and how are they coming back?
Oh, I have a few things that I need to add in here. So I spoke about eternal life and that we're coming into that coding in our last, but there was a lot of information we spoke of. But there, we are coming into that possibility of living in a very extended life, even in this lifetime. But it is our natural essence. It's our natural soul way of being to live. Well, our soul does live eternally, but in this physical form, we really were designed to live here for a very long time. And so that sits in those codes are being like reignited at the moment. And so many of us will live long lives, and the codes of youthing also are becoming more available, and there'll be more that comes out about that. I want to say that it's a really good practice for everybody to say when they are driving or in a car, just to say, I just place a bubble of protection around myself, so this is what I do when I'm on the road, and around my car, around all of the people in my car, around all of the people on the road, around all of the vehicles that they're in, coming my way and in the opposite way. Let's have everybody in a bubble of protection so everybody is kept safe, because exactly what you said, Mel, that there's this light, it's provoking, it's evoking this energy that brings anger because people don't know what to do with it, but actually it's just an opportunity for us to attend to the shadow aspect of self. I'll put the stick back in the middle.
Yeah, I so agree with you, and I think that is the key to everything. Is we can, yes, there's galactic groups out there, and yes, we can have these experiences with them, but they haven't shown themselves in a huge way for a reason. And that is because we're not ready.
That's right.
And I mean, we all say bring the ETs and let's sort this planet out, but honestly, if they just landed and showed up, we would freak out, and it would just cause such mayhem, and they know that. And that's
Yeah,
why we've all just got these little pieces inside of us that are that are being where we're being forced to work together. Because look at the spiritual unfoldings at the moment, of the Epstein files, whatever you want to. You've got all, and there's some explosive things coming out around all of the spiritual leaders at the moment, and the reason these exposés are coming out is because as soon as one person has too much power, they become these megalomaniacs. And I've seen it. I've been in touch with people at quite high levels that are completely money obsessed. They're completely obsessed with getting 1 billion followers. They're completely obsessed with taking over the world. They've completely lost sight of their message. And this is just because they're human, because they cannot be trusted with that level of power. And so it's not a bad thing what's happening. It's not a bad thing that all this is coming to light. It's not a bad thing that they've let us down. It's just illuminating the fact that we are not yet ready to hold that level of power ourselves, because we have not yet done the level of healing required of our own shit to be able to hold with humility a level of power that we do not abuse, and that does not invoke our egoic self to this insane level where we lose sight of who we are and what our message is, and become completely obsessed with uh, followers, fame, money, status, and are willing to move into what everyone else seems to do when they get to a certain level, is just almost implode their soul in order to somehow get to the next level. And which level is enough? If everyone, and I say this all the time, if everyone was just doing their bit in their community, if everyone was just looking around their own community and saying, what can I do to help? How can I serve? How can I make a difference in this 1 square block radius? Who can I assist? What can I do down at my local community centre? What can I do down at the soup kitchen? How can I work through the pain and suffering that I have been through? If we just focused on that, then everything else would take care of itself.
Mm. Yeah, it's the love of power when we need to move to the power of love, right? It's just turning it that
Mm.
inversion again. And we've been
beautiful.
taught so much to be in our heads, like we've literally been educated like that. It's all competitive. And now we're learning to literally drop into the body and feel the feelings. And I mean, I know, Mel, that you've done a lot of work to help people look through their shadows, and I've done a lot of work personally on my shadows through plant medicines and various shamanic work. And it's incredible when you actually start to deal to your own shadows, because you learn to actually understand why you're behaving in certain ways. And it's a huge revelation, because you start to actually move from disliking those behaviors and just carrying them on as a cycle, a spiral, spiraling down, let's say. And you start to learn to love yourself again and see what happened to that inner child. You've taught me a lot about that as well. So yeah, I think that shadow work is really important for people to look at, and the time is never been more now. We all have shadows. We all need to look to ourselves as well before we start blaming and looking at other people. I think that's really important.
Well, the shadow aspects, they come to bring us lessons that we dialed in for ourselves or the healing that we dialed in for ourselves. And so attending to that and then integrating it in, because it brings wisdom when we've done that healing and integration. I wanted to mention though on a rerun cycle is that in many ways we are doing a rerun of the lifetime of Atlantis. And so most of us here, and I would say especially those who are conscious now, we were in that lifetime of Atlantis where it was totally, in my view anyway, it imploded. And so we have come back and we were incredibly powerful. And so we've come back in this time to rewrite that without having the explosive ending, with having this ending where we become a planet that's integrated, that's whole, and that is, this interdimensional destination point, and that many of us do have our ancestry or our original DNA in planets that are not of Earth, and we came here to reseed and to reintroduce, to bring about, to like bring the Earth back from its demise or to prevent its demise. And so many of us came to do that, to do a rewrite on that. And we're on the edges of that, and it is going to mean, Gaia says, about a third of the population will leave now. And so we can see that a third of the population might not be of that sort of human sentient aspect. Um, I was going to talk about the firmament. So the firmament is that what people might call that shield, but it really has been shown to me recently that at one point you could visualize it as like a perspex dome or a perspex shield. Beings couldn't come in and out of it. We were totally um, in isolation. And it's over time, it's gone from being perspex to being plastic to then being cellophane to now it's like a cellulosic cellophane that can dissolve. And so there's a membrane that can be passed in and out now. So that's a recent shift.
Wow, that's really interesting. And yeah, it's something I often get people to do because a lot is, a lot of people are noticing stuff happening at night at the moment. Dreams are crazy. There's different things happening. So sometimes I'm often woken up at 3 or 4 in the morning, and after about the fourth night in the row, when I woke up at I think 3:33, and I was like, oh no, I'm wide awake again at 3:30, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna lie here. I'm gonna ask my team what's going on. So I was lying there, and I was like, okay, what is going on? Why do you keep waking me at this time? And they said to me, well, you complain that you never get a minute to yourself during the day. And I was like, oh, thanks. And so I've started this, often sort of meditating for an hour around that time to um, just to actually have that time and space to myself where I'm not being interrupted and I'm not, and also the veil is just so thin at that time, right? So everything just thins right out and stretches, and the portals are just so much easier to access, and so it's always a really nice time to be meditating anyway. But yeah, I often, if people, because we're getting frequency attack as well, there's voice to skull frequency attack is massive
Mm.
at the moment. And sometimes, sorry, my dog is driving me nuts. She just goes crazy if she's not in the room. Hang on a second. Honestly, she's been in and out, in and out. So yeah, we've got a lot of voice to skull. Sometimes I'm waking up, and I am waking up to thoughts that I would never have. And it's crazy. Like I'm hearing the words in my head. I'm literally hearing words, and and they're being projected into my head, and I know that I would never say that. I would never think that. And I am waking up right in the middle of it, so I'm almost like catching it, and I'm like, wow, like I can totally see what is going on here. I would never have these thoughts. Um, if I'm going to pray to God, I would never say Heavenly Father. These sorts of things are literally like a full scale voice in my head when I'm waking up. So I'm waking up in the middle of these transmissions, right, that are being
Mm.
projected into my head. So I do often get people to put a glass dome, like these glass domes and these bubbles of protection. I get them just to bring down like a cake glass dome and put it over the bed, over the house, over the area, just like you do with the cars, Sharron. And I love that. And yeah, I'm going to start putting some more bubbles over the car when I go out. I keep forgetting to do that. It's a good reminder.
You know that talking about the voices in your head, I really started to feel that when I was trying to do a month off drinking, and I've since been really successful and managed to do 3 months at a time. But I remember this one day I walked into and I was in the house on my own, and I walked into my pantry, and there was the bottle of Glenmorangie Portwood Finish whiskey on the shelf. I'd been, keeping there, 18-year-old or whatever. And I heard this voice in my head said, go on, you could just have a little tipple of that just straight out of the bottle. And I was like, I would never do that. I would always, if I was going to do it, I was going to, pour it in a nice glass. So I knew that wasn't me. And then over the years, I've been hearing more and more about from different sources. So I think those ladies you were talking about earlier that wrote the book on Lyra, Mel, they
Mm,
talked about the infiltration that happened in Lyra, this other planet, and how it started in people's dreams at night, interestingly.
mm.
And that's how I feel that it's been happening for us. So it's actually right, it's inside us. It's like a parasite.
Well,
I've
they're
heard Oracle
patented
Bell.
frequencies. They're actually
Yeah,
patented frequencies that have been around since the
right.
80s. This is not even new technology. This has
Mm.
actually been projected out since the 80s, and this is only the American patents that I'm aware of. But imagine China,
Yeah,
Russia,
I would say there are
the other big.
patents from way earlier that are secreted inside something else.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm. Well, the
but
way
there
I've
is
heard it
this idea that the 3 o'clock time is the time for accessing your I am presence easily and your higher self easily. So if you wake up at that time, it'll be useful to ask your mighty I am presence, your higher self, to give you guidance on whatever else is going on. How can I, whatever you might want to do with it, how can I prevent this or protect myself, or how can I remember this so I can access it down the track, or where shall I file this, that kind of thing. It's to me it's the bewitching hour, but
Mm,
it's for all aspects. It's when all aspects can come in, so just direct it.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, we've got so much more power than we realize, right? Like
Yeah,
we literally. I mean, I'm seeing so much manifestation, not just in me, but in all my clients. They're coming to me, and things are happening around them that they can't explain,
yeah,
like things exploding, all their electrical equipment dying at the same time, cars going, but it's a pure manifestation of their emotional state. Not everything, but that's what I'm seeing when I tune in, is these emotional states, heightened emotional states, are creating physical manifestations. And it's happening more and more and more. This, almost telekinesis is sort of coming into positioning where we are literally creating the world around us. We're
yeah,
literally creating it every second of every
yeah.
day, right?
That's right, and more so, and more um, quickly.
Mm,
And so that whole notion of energy flows where focus goes is like, whoop, straight in your face. And so this is our work to monitor our thoughts and place them into what it is that we desire. But yeah, the creation energies are they really are showing up very strongly, especially for the feminine at the moment, because the feminine have like cut the path for this new way and are the creation or the creatrix, the aspect of creation. And the masculine are they are how I'm showing it is that they're laying in the path and they're building in what is created by the feminine. And so they were moving into this movement of flow, the figure eight in a whole lot of different ways. And the figure eight showing up also as a cluster, as a like a star. That's the other imagery. And it's a new sacred geometry, if you can think of an asterisk, but each of those lines is made up of a loop. So there's a figure of eight loop that's made into a star asterisk, and that at the moment is shifting. I'm showing from the throat down to the top of the what is it called? Sternum, to the sternum. And so there's this movement of that, it's opening up and then it's also dropping down and doing the same thing in the sacral and the root, so that this is us making these movements gradually to create things in our physical reality. And so this idea of like making something appear in front of us, in a way we have to get our heads straight around that, and it's that whole thing about you have to believe something in order for it to happen, but we're in movement to that. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
We talked quite a bit last time about places in New Zealand and that people can go to, and I think that getting back into nature and getting out of the cities, out of the towns, out of the Wi-Fi, out of the technology is really important, and grounding, looking at earth points. And one of the few places that I can mention that I know about are we talked about Castle Rock last time, but also places like Lake Rotoponamu, which is just
Yes.
underneath Taupo,
Huge.
and Taupo itself. It's a massive portal. It's the water spinner wheel of the earth. And there's a fire one that's in Hawaii. There's the earth one, which is in South Africa around Table Mountain. And the air one actually is a big mountain somewhere. I think it's Nepal, but I can't quite remember. And these points are really important places for people. We always used to pilgrimage to those places, or even just swimming in the water, swimming in the sea. I do that every day that I can, especially in the summer. I just feel like the codes can travel so easily in water.
Yeah, that
You're
is
lying on the
exactly
ground,
it.
big
Yeah.
by the rock. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And actually, negative entities can't cross water. So that's why water is used for baptism. That's why it's used for cleansing, and because entities can't use water as a travel vessel. So it's just such a beautiful place to clear negative frequencies off you.
Yeah, so that's what Gaia says, is that the codes come in through the rains of consciousness, RAIN, the which comes in through the ethers or the plasma, and then it comes in and the whales distribute it. So it comes
Wow.
into the oceans, and the whales distribute it through all of the waterways, internally, external rivers, oceans, known, unknown, all of that kind of thing. And so they are very important in their carrying of codes.
Do you
And they
see? Do you see other marine life as having this same kind of mission as whales?
know, but other marine life does have missions, like the dolphins. They bring
A dolphin vision that I had once. It's as it's really relevant to this. So I'd taken a boyfriend. So I thought, right, I'm going to take him to go and be healed by the dolphins. And we didn't actually manage to get in the water with them. We can't hear you, Melly.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you, Nesta? I'm just going to change into a another frequency because we missed you there. And can you just repeat what you just said? Sorry, that froze at my end.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Is this good?
yeah.
Okay. So I was just saying, and I'll cut it short, that I had a vision once when I took a boyfriend to swim with dolphins to help him heal. And we didn't get in the water with them in the end. It was too rough, and I was being a martyr, so I didn't go in. But we were doing a meditation all together as a group with sound and music. And said, "Hello, I am the king of the dolphins. Can I kiss you?" And I just freaked out and I didn't know what was going on. And I said, I didn't really answer, didn't know what to do. So he asked again and he put a crown on his head and said, "I'm the king of the dolphins and I've come here to give you a kiss. Can I kiss you?" And I said, "What?" So he said, "I'll ask a third and final time." And he put a pair of comedy lips, that you get from a cracker, on his snout and said, "I'm asking permission to kiss you." So I gave permission and he jumped through my third eye, I guess, through my whole body. And I remember it like it's yesterday, and this is 20 years ago now. Every cell in my body was ecstatic, joyful energy. And I knew that that's what the dolphins bring to the planet. And when I've been swimming with
Wow.
whales, I've been lucky enough to see them swimming together. And honestly, it gives me goosebumps every time I remember either of those memories, seeing the whales and dolphins together. And I have to say, for those of you in New Zealand, just make a little plug here for coming to swim with whales in Aitutaki. We have spaces. So if you want to get in touch with me, please do, because it's the most amazing experience and gift. Yeah.
Oh, and I can say, like, I've seen your videos, and Nesta's done these trips multiple times. I mean, that it's mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. It is absolutely on my bucket list to be on one of those trips with you one day. It just blows my mind.
I was sent to swim with the dolphins in Bimini. Well, I was sent to Bimini to collect some of the emerald codes for completion. And there's a dive there where you dive the Atlantean Road. So that's another story on its own.
Wow.
But I've been sent to many sacred places around the world, and yeah, was sent there a couple of years ago, I think it was, and dived with the dolphins and like so I went with Rebecca Gambles, who's an animal communicator, and every day, so the boat that we went out on, the skipper said, we don't usually get out every day and we don't usually see the dolphins every day, but we dived with the dolphins I think on one day we dived in with them 8 times. And most days, or many days, we dived with them 3 times. And so I remember being on a dive with them, can't remember exactly the location, but we were in Bimini, so it was around that region. And I heard this dolphin say, "I'm coming up to you." And I looked down, and there were 3 dolphins on the just like almost lying on the bottom. And I thought, "Oh, yeah, it's that one." And the next moment it just straight up and was vertical at me. It spun around on its way up, eyeballed me, and it was, like this far away from my face. And then
Oh,
off it went again. So they're as incredible as we know they are.
oh my God, that's so amazing. And, if you think about the things that we have done to animals, like Flipper and SeaWorld
Ah,
and zoos, and um, when you start to communicate with the animal kingdom and you start to receive their codes, it becomes unbearable to think of, you know, constricted, caged animals in any way, shape, or form. It's just horrific beyond belief, what we've been
yes.
doing to them
So
as
this is part
well.
of our movement now, is to recognize that the earth is living, breathing, that all the creatures on it have a place and a space, and we're just one of those creatures, and we're not
Mm,
more or less important.
Absolutely. And, really that everything on the planet should be in communion with each other. Every living thing, every plant that we take, every piece of food that we eat is sacred. Our relationship with animals is sacred. Our relationship with nature is sacred. And all of these things, are being squeezed from us to keep us disconnected from each other. A lack of touch, lack of personal touch is just huge. um, and this withdrawing of relationship with nature, and keeping us inside and plugged in, and
Mm.
really the most healing codes that we will ever find is taking ourselves back to these spaces, back to this loving connection with all life in all forms, and not seeing ourselves as above or below anything or any living creature.
Mm. Mm.
Mm, beautiful.
Yeah. Dog, cats, they're all just beautiful, aren't they?
Oh,
We've learned so much from our animals.
so much, yeah. So I think maybe it would be nice to sort of finish there. And what I would love from maybe you first, Nesta, is what your most hopeful message is for people listening that they can take away from today.
Mm. Yeah, I think that when we're afraid of something, that's the time to really dig deep, because being afraid makes you freeze, makes you small. Reach out to someone, reach out to a friend, talk
Mm,
about it, find a community that you can share with, and hear about other people's stories and come up with ideas with them to take some action. And it doesn't matter if it's the wrong action, it just is
mm,
some action. It
mm,
moves your body and moves your mind out of that frozen space. So yeah, really reach out. I mean, I know I live on my own, so I really value my friends and my animals. And I really think that's important too, is just reaching out when you're feeling low and when you need company and when you need help.
I love that so much. The
Mm.
best advice.
It
Sharon.
is. The power is in our learning to be in present moment
Mm,
and to be in dialogue with self. So ask yourself the question and
mm,
see what answer comes. But I can assure you, from the highest level that I've ever accessed, that we are not in demise, that we are in this revival. We're in this remembrance of who we are and where we come from, and we're becoming those powerful beings again, um, bit by bit. And
mm.
and this is in this creation of our new. So the old is dissipating as we are recreating the new versions of ourselves, the new systems. We're going to be this incredible planet that is irresistible that everybody will want to live
Hey.
on. It's going to be paradise, that we're creating paradise on earth, and we're just doing it bit by bit. And so every time, if you feel a bit down, just recognize that it's just in that moment, and then shift your focus to something that takes you to a higher space, because your vibration and frequency is fundamental to your well-being, to your evolution, and to that of all sentient life.
Amen. Oh my gosh, that is just so true. I love that. And yeah, I'd probably just piggyback on both of those and say that connection is everything. And we are all connected. Every single piece of matter is connected. No matter where we are, what universe we're in, what planet we're on, all sentient life, all life is connected.
Yes,
And anything that is matter has come from source, and therefore it is part of source, and therefore it is connected to us. And so the only thing that we can be sure of managing is ourselves. So let's just work on ourselves. Let's just do the healing on ourselves. Let's just not try and change everything around us all the time. Let's try and change ourselves into the best version of ourselves that we can be, do the deepest healing, and come into that space of love and compassion for all life. And from that, we'll expand the frequency that we are building, because we are seriously manifesting the world around us every second of every day, more and more powerfully at the moment.
Beautiful. Perfect.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much, ladies. I just love chatting
Thank
to you
you.
too, and I'm really, really grateful that you've jumped on again. And yeah, let's chat again soon.
Mm.
And thanks to everyone that has tuned in, and we love your comments. And kia kaha, stay strong.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.